Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls. I'm your host, Patricia Baker. I'm here with my co-host, PK, who is surviving the heat in Tucson.
Mm-hmm. When they say we're hot stuff, they're not kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Just not the way we would like it to be.
Exactly. It's even hot here in the Berkshires. We are melting away, I'll tell you. I don't know how you do it out there because you're a good 12 degrees hotter than we are or more.
Oh, it's been incredible. We had like a mini tornado 2 days ago.
That's scary. Yeah.
Half of my trees are all put to pieces and
boy.
Not good.
Not at all. And we've just been through a pretty frightening event with our President Trump and the people, all of us who've been affected by it. One man, a wonderful father. We've heard so many good things about who passed away.
That we have.
Protecting family. That's what he was doing. God bless him. And I read today something from his daughter that was so moving. And I'm going to find a way to post it on Supernatural Girls Facebook page so everybody can read it. I was thinking I'd love to read it tonight out loud, but I wouldn't make it through. I know, I just collapsed into tears because it was, again, it's a terrible thing and it was heartfelt. And this family is now without their dad and the lady's without her husband.
Anytime we lose someone, it is devastating. It doesn't matter how it comes about, but under circumstances where the world is a stage and we're all watching it transpire, that's what makes it even worse.
It makes it
it's hard enough to hear about these things, but to see what's going on, man's inhumanity to man. Good Lord. We're in the 6th month, and the 6th month is all about family type responsibilities, caring for other people, showing others hand to hand love, care, share, and working with things of that nature. And it's just devastating to see it snowballing like it is. But I think the most important thing we can do is pray. I don't care what your religion, pray. Because if we do it in joint unity, can you imagine the sound that's got to be heard in heaven?
Yes.
I think that's the way to go.
It is the way to go. And I don't know if you noticed or you saw this, but when all of this started, there were 2 people behind President Trump who crossed themselves and began praying right away. There's so many people who have turned to spiritual prayer and comfort throughout all of this. But you've been looking at the numbers. So what have you found?
Well, look, firstly, like I said, this is a month that deals with family type responsibilities and wanting things to be perfect, working with perfection. It deals with the balancing or unbalanced world that we're living in right now. Everyone wants perfection. We don't have it. We're not going to have it until we quit poking everybody to tell them how wrong they are or they're making the wrong choices. Your choice is between you and God. Make the right choice, back it up with your care and consideration for others. This is a day that we deal with details of things. 6 and 4s deal with alternative. This is a 6-month deal with alternative issues. Let's make the alternative way the best we can make it. Instead of looking over to point fingers, let's instead put our fingers together, our hands clasped in prayer. That's the only way we're going to get through this, because there's too many negative things. Too many people are so willing to blame the person next to you or the person across the street. The only blame is if we don't acknowledge that this is a God force that we have to reach out and look for. We're always looking for things from the outer universe to see what's going on in this world. Use it for your prayer every night. Let's say something to try to join this nation together. We can't survive if we do nothing but destroy.
Absolutely. Very good advice, PK. Thank you. And I know you've taken a look at this person's house number who did this. You took a look at some other things. We'll get to that maybe next week. But it's all, again, with the numbers involved.
It's so raw right now for everybody.
Yeah, it's absolutely too raw. But we will get to that for all of you, because I know you're looking forward to hearing from PK about all of it. And she's got it. So we'll be sharing it next week. And we want to get to our guest tonight, who I think is going to become one of our favorite people. I just have that feeling.
So
I think so.
After looking at the book, not a doubt in my mind.
Beautiful book. My God. The UFO Paradox. He is the author of this gorgeous book, The Celestial and Symbolic World of Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Now, I'm going to have to put my granny glasses on so I can read this, because for some reason this is printed very, very tiny on the back of his book.
You can't see because the print. I can't see because of dilation of my eyes.
You were dilated.
What a pair we make today.
No, we would be in big trouble if we had to see our way out of it. Anyways, our guest tonight is Keith Thompson, and he is an author, an independent journalist, talk show radio host, former TV talk show host, and former U.S. Senate staff member. My God, what else has he done? His articles have appeared in the New York Times, Esquire, San Francisco Chronicle, Idaho Statesman, and the Pacific Sun. And he is also the author of Angels and Aliens and Leaving the Left, the Lives. And he lives in, guess where? Northwest Florida. Okay. Well, anyways, we're very excited to talk to this gentleman, so we better bring him on the show. Keith, welcome.
Well, it's great to be with you both. And I must say, I can't let your marvelous introduction, not of me, but the introductory themes you raised. I find it, I've been sitting here listening to your call for a larger sense of purpose and coalescing. And isn't it remarkable that those who would espouse what you just said about coming together in unity, that's the new counterculture. Remember when the counterculture was to challenge some existing orthodoxy, and now that has been so replaced by all kinds of forces that we could talk about. I don't want to get into a deep political thing, but I just want to say, isn't it funny that people who talk about the importance of prayer, talk about positive intentions? We're the new counterculture. Those are very traditional values. Our ancestors understood that your thoughts were important because then they would lead to words, and words would lead to actions. So there was a sense of the kind of causal flow of things. But we're the new counterculture, standing up for values that are, ancient, eternal.
That's
so anyway.
A good point. Yes, it's
very
true.
much so. Very much.
And here I am with a book on UFOs. It's it's an unusual thing. I'll start with something about that. Somebody asked me recently. They said, Keith, you've had articles on all kinds of mainstream papers. You're an investigative journalist. When did you decide to shift from being an investigative journalist to being a UFO investigator? And I listened to the question. I said, I can't answer that because the question is not formulated right. I haven't shifted from anything. I'm an investigative journalist, and I've simply turned my attention to this particular subject of UFOs and the implications of this. I'm interested in reality. I'm not a ufologist. Someone said, how long have you been a ufologist? I said, I don't even identify with the term. It's a goofy term. I mean, in all respect, if someone calls himself a ufologist and that's what they're a UFO researcher, fine. I'm not saying there's a correct term. I'm interested in the nature of reality, what's real. And I think this phenomenon opens up a lot of doors. So I'm sure I know we have lots of mutual interests, but I know what you guys are up to here on this show.
Yes, we open up doors all the time with all of them.
Some get slammed out our fingers occasionally, but we're still opening them.
Well, I think it was Thoreau who said, or no, it was William Blake. He said, there's what we don't know, there's what we know, and there's what we don't know. And they're connected by doors.
That's
they're
true.
connected by doors.
True.
There's walls between, different phenomena, and the way through the walls is, hey, there's a doorway. Let's take it, see where it takes us.
Exactly. Now, obviously, you are a great investigative journalist. You've done a very thorough job with your book. Was there any one thing that motivated you to take this on?
Well, I had written a first book. Well, where do I start? There are really two sides of this for me. What I say about this phenomenon is it is a phenomenon that straddles the objective and the subjective world. That is to say that it has a foot in both camps, and that's what Jung called a synchronicity, when there's a meaningful connection between the psychic and the inner world and the objective or the outer world. Mainstream Western science says there's a duality. The mind and matter are permanently separate. What that means is there cannot be connection between minds because brains are separate. We have 3 brains here between the 3 of us. We'll do the best we can, right? but at the level of mind, we are not separate. Now that's a woo-woo statement. Well, it's yesterday's woo becomes today's science. 2 years ago, the Nobel Prize in Science was given to the 2 mainstream scientists who confirmed the reality of entangled photons, entangled particles, molecular particles, light particles separated by vast distances, but remaining connected. That's hardcore woo, because the very underlying structure of everything is connected. And the mainstream media, this is not to do a mainstream media dig, but as usual, our mainstream media are so focused, and that should be the leading. Can you imagine? That should be the leading story some night on the CBS Evening News. We interrupt tonight to start with a story that is remarkable about a scientific evidence that we are deeply connected at the quantum level and at this level. Why wouldn't that be the leading story on the news? And then go from that to talk about all the discord we have. Maybe we'd have a different framework about the conflict of the daily news.
We'd have a more honest framework.
Yeah, with the assumption being that the evidence, it's not a matter of faith, that at the subatomic level we're deeply connected. Now, at this level, we appear to be fragmented. Why don't we investigate the gap between those two? If we are deeply connected and we don't know it, how do we manage not to know that? That's an interesting area to investigate.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing here. We're investigating things that are connected.
Yeah, exactly. And you bring up so many points in just that one paragraph that you went into today, because we are all connected. We've known this. You talk about we are now the old timers who have become the counterculture, but look, ancient people, indigenous people who have known this, the Aborigines, the Native Americans who have known this and have talked about it for so many generations. And yet we are the most fragmented now that we've ever been. So, yes.
You asked a question, which I kind of slid into some big stuff. How did I come to this? There's both an objective and a subjective side. Then I went off on the other. So let me go back to the objective. Objectively, I am a journalist. I'm interested in facts. I love taking on stories. I've always wanted to write about things. My sense of being a journalist came from when I was 12 years old. I describe in the book how in my 6th grade class, it was my turn to give a current events report. Each of us took turns bringing in a story in the news and being a reporter. I chose when I was 12, a UFO sighting, and I was growing up in Northwest Ohio. And in neighboring Michigan, there was a famous UFO sighting that was related to the idea that maybe UFOs are caused by our mistaken swamp gas. It's a larger story, but that's when the phrase swamp gas came in as an explanation next to weather balloons, as the other all-purpose explanation for what the UFOs are. So I gave a presentation and about the controversy, which is what was interesting to me. Credible witnesses reported strange lights, strange objects, paranormal phenomena, and the official agents of official culture in science, media, academia. I quickly learned their response was, no, it's not possible. It didn't happen. I go, oh, wow, there are people who are from various walks of life making credible testimony, credible witness to incredible things, truly incredible. I grant that, remarkable thing. But the immediate response, is, rather than curiosity, was to say, no, that isn't Paul. That doesn't work. It was misidentification. That's what caught my interest. So in any case, at the end of doing this classroom report, my teacher said, I think what Keith is trying to tell us is it's important to keep an open mind and to ask relevant questions. I can't tell you how important that was for me as a young person, to stand up in front of my class and have that kind of approval, if you will, from a teacher, an adult, welcoming a fellow adult, an aspiring adult to the world of ideas and the world of making a contribution. I felt seen, I felt heard. And she said, Keith, and she said, I remember to this day, she turned to me and said, Mr. Thompson, you know how teachers often will sometimes be formal, Miss Smith, Mr. Thompson. She said, Mr. Thompson, excellent report. You have the makings of a scientist or a reporter, journalist, or maybe even a detective. Follow the evidence wherever it leads. I can tell you, I took that in like a tape recorder. I still remember. I didn't become a scientist. I didn't become a detective. I became a journalist. So that's the objective side. Now, the subjective side is I have had experiences of my own. These days, that makes me an experiencer, right? In the language that we use in this world. I didn't think of myself at the time, but real briefly, let me tell you one I had at age 14. I had a habit of going up onto the rooftop of our family house. We had a TV antenna that was built into the ground right next to the kind of stationary, remember the stationary TV antennas that were built into the ground, and they were actually away onto the roof. Well, we were told not to go onto the roof. It's very dangerous. We had a 3-story house. But when my parents were away or weren't looking, I would go on the roof, just like the old song.
Not a doubt.
Up on the roof, when this old world starts getting you down, the people are much too much for you to take. You go up on the roof and just sort of chill. There were no drugs. There were no drugs involved, I'm happy to say. And I went up onto the roof, laid back, and I just looked into the sky, the beautiful blue sky. And just without any purpose or aim, I found myself aware that I was suddenly everywhere at once, no place in particular. I had a sense of the boundary between me as a separate person and the rest of the universe disappearing. I was surrounded by a kind of brilliance that seemed to carry me beyond time and space. Now, let me quickly add, I did not achieve anything. I did not cause anything to happen. This was not some accomplishment. It was not a spiritual thing that I created. It was actually the opposite. By doing nothing, something dropped away, and I felt that I was seeing what really is. In fact, there was no doubt. I thought, this is what people mean by God. This is the God space. This is reality. This is the truth behind things. This is center court. This is the design mind. Those phrases weren't all in my head, but particularly the idea of God or spirit or soul. So I came down from the roof. You can imagine I did not tell my parents, guess what? I just experienced a loss of the division between me and the rest of the universe. And it's the truest thing that's possible. And it's who we all really are. I didn't do that. I think I would have been medicated, even though they didn't medicate kids as much.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm 14 years old. And the main thing about it, guys, is I came away, girls, supernatural girls, I came away with a sense, I know that this is the truest thing that there is to see. I have somehow been shown it. And I know there are others who've seen it too. And those who haven't seen it aren't living a false life. But I've seen more. There's more to this than we know. That was the way it was. So I held it in a way that was surprisingly sane. I should add one more detail. We were not a religious family. To the degree that we had anything to do with church, we did go to church because it was important to my mom, but not because she was devout. She was a good citizen. So what I mean by that is it was unspoken that good people, it was good for good people to be seen going to church. You wanted to be seen going to church. Good people, it was good for them to be seen being religious. So I didn't have a deep Christian or other kind of background. It was a sense of just doing the right thing, going to church. So I didn't have a religious orientation, and in many ways that made it easier to open up to the idea of, you often hear the phrase spiritual but not religious.
Yes.
Well, that's kind of the framework I had. I have great respect for religion when when it keeps its proper bounds and isn't trying to tell everybody else there's only one way to live. Not all religion has to be that way. So anyway, right, I'm trying to identify. I had an objective orientation as a journalist, suddenly a spiritual inner orientation, and I have had a balance between those two, sort of a relationship between those two. And it's interesting that it brings me to the UFO phenomenon, which is filled with these are objective events that appear in real life. They appear on radar. They have all the markings of material, physical events, and that they also then often disappear on the spot, reappear somewhere else, change shape, become orbs of light. So I don't, maybe because I had my own experience of a larger vastness, that I found myself able to follow the evidence even when it goes into these kinds of realms. I didn't start out looking at UFOs. I started looking at UFOs as a journalist, right? As a 12-year-old journalist, and follow the evidence wherever it leads, as my teacher said. Well, when I discovered there seemed to be a, quote, paranormal dimension, that just seemed to me to be a different kind of evidence. And I understood, however, that it goes against the strictures of Western materialist bias and it's pseudoscience. I'm aware of all that. But my view is, no, you are setting up boundaries about what you consider evidence. I didn't vote for paranormal, but it seems to be the way nature is. So why don't we explore it if we want to understand nature? Bingo.
Exactly. So, I mean, your book is really complete. But what do you want people to take away from this book? What is the main message?
Well, the main message, I think, is this idea of what Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist who broke away from Freud for different reasons, understood as the synchronicity. Synchronicities are those events which have an unexplained causal relationship between a psychic state and a physical event. For example, that's a little technical. We've all had these moments when you've been thinking of someone, maybe someone from high school, someone is not part of your regular life, day-to-day life. So there wasn't any real particular reason to think. It might be my friend Mary Ellen, who sat behind me in algebra class in 10th grade. And I just found myself thinking about Mary Ellen. The phone rings. I pick it up. Hi, Keith. You'll be surprised to hear it's me, Mary Ellen. Remember me from high school? Now that's a big one, right? Wow, 20 years ago. We all have those moments when that's called a coincidence. And in materialist science, where everything is separate and where those kind of connections can't be meaningful, there can't be a convergence between physical events and psychic events in that way. Well, Carl Jung said it is commonplace. And so what I want people to take away is an openness to the larger experiences we have in our life are meaningful. They're callings to a larger sense of cosmos. So you don't have to become a UFO researcher. You don't even have to read a lot of books about this kind of subject matter. But if you have experiences such as being in the grocery store and you just have this uncanny feeling someone is staring at you, and they're not in your line of sight, and you look around, someone is looking directly at you. The point of that is not why are they looking at you? Are they lusting after you? Are they getting ready to rob you? That's not the issue. You were aware someone was making contact with you with their eyes, and you felt it in a way that can't be explained. The reason that's relevant is because a researcher at the Institute of Noetic Sciences in Northern California, Dean Radin, R-A-D-I-N, very good science researcher, has done systematic studies separating out all the cues that could give away staring, and has been able to determine that people know when they're being stared at. They know physiologically that the staring creates a response because, as I said at the beginning, we're all connected at the subatomic level. So it's really ultimately an opportunity and a challenge to change our worldview to match the world itself. The world itself isn't coming up with new dimensions all of a sudden. It's that the new dimensions are finally entering our awareness. Oh, there's a larger paradigm. There's a larger worldview that's available to accommodate all of the phenomena of nature. That's really what an anomaly is. We speak of an anomaly in the Western worldview. paranormal phenomena are anomalies. They're not anomalies in nature. Nature is not at odds with itself. The anomaly is in our picture of the world. The anomaly says our picture of the world isn't complete. Expand our picture of the world so that it includes connections which don't make sense. Make sense. They're a larger, extra, they make extra sense, extrasensory sense. And so it takes us into a bigger sense of reality.
Okay, well, that is a very good message that people
Definitely.
can play with, because, I mean, our tagline is where paranormal is normal. I mean, to us, all of this is normal. There's nothing abnormal about any of it. And so we're right there with you. And I see, hello, bravo, Johnny, saying hello to us. Yes, it is a very important expansion of human consciousness that you're addressing in your book. And you've written about a number of cases. You've also written about some other people who are looking for answers, like Robert Bigelow. And there's this whole field has gotten very crowded, it seems to us, because we've been involved with this since we were kids, and we're kids.
Little younger.
But there's this pressure. Years ago, there was all of this pressure on UFO abductees. They were called abductees back then. And there was misinformation, disinformation. There was a whole mess of very bad information getting out there. And then people were treated horribly that were talking about this. Now, thank God that's changed. So as a journalist, you've seen that. You've seen a large change in how they now address, how we all now address this topic. There's a lot more leniency. There's a lot more interest, a lot less making fun of people and trying to say that they're crazy or whatever. So that's dropped away to some large degree.
One of the shifts, I think, is a shift in language from the idea of the abductee or abduction to the language of experiencer. As experiencer, it covers a broader range of phenomena. I do go into the book, I'll keep it simple here, but I explore the abduction research of a couple of the main researchers. And I reveal how, in my view, their well-intentioned effort to bring insight into the phenomena that is called abduction had the unfortunate effect of creating what I call a certain kind of bias in their approach. One researcher in particular, David Jacobs of Temple University, a historian, very well-respected researcher there.
We know
Yeah. Okay. So his work, he didn't do work at Temple on abductions. His nightlife was on abductions. His day job was as a very well-respected historian. He took a lot of heat at Temple for his interest, but in any case, he had a process by which he would look at potential witnesses and people he would work with as an abductee, and he said, well, if they report so-called spiritual experiences, I might have to rule them out, because we're not looking at abductions as spiritual experience. These are real kidnappings by aliens and so forth. So he went down that line. He said, if people believe in reincarnation, things like that, that might be a sign that they have psychological problems by believing in things like reincarnation. I go, wait a minute. You are actually using a selection by, what if people who believe in reincarnation and have spiritual experiences also have abduction experiences? Right. Why would you exclude? Because you may not personally be open to spiritual. It turned out he was a materialist scientist. He wanted to explain everything in terms the abductions were solely material events. They have an overlap in the material world, for sure. These are physically tangible events, but they also have elements of out-of-body elements, lucid dreaming, elements of precognition. What happens when an abductee, after the abduction is over, and before the next encounter, finds that they're suddenly having telepathic experiences, precognitive experiences? Okay, wow, then there's a connection between the abduction. What if the abduction is a kind of a hardcore spiritual experience? It's a kind of introduction or initiation into a larger view. John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist who took up the issue of abductions, jokingly called abductions remedial therapy for the spiritually impaired. by which he meant,
Wow.
and he was very careful the way he meant. He said, maybe we are so thick-headed in the West that in order to have openings into a larger worldview, we have to have them experienced as full-blown abductions. Maybe that's a measure partly of our defended identity. We're all separate selves. He actually said the strong sense of being our sovereignty is being violated in the abduction experience. He said, I understand that if you're being taken without your permission. But what if your sense of sovereignty is so well defined that you regard any kind of interaction as a threat to your identity? You see the point I'm making? Maybe we're being invited to open up to a larger sense of identity where we're maybe a little more permeable a boundary with beings. It's not to say there aren't some hardcore hombre aliens, okay? There might be some who are not very nice characters who are grabbing people without their will. So I'm not saying that feeling that you were abducted against your will is a sign of your ego defenses. I'm not saying anything like that. But in the big picture, can we stand back? Maybe we're being invited, simply put, to a larger worldview, larger sense of experience. Like in the Middle Ages, the philosophers like Dante would create a picture of the universe as having multiple levels, multiple dimensions, concentric circles. You know those designs from the medieval art books with beings at every level. The universe was seen as a place of populated by beings of many kinds, subtle body, gross body. So anyway, what if the fact that we tuned that out for 300 years, maybe we've reached the end of that. Maybe the rest of reality is saying we're going to have to knock harder on your door to get you humans to realize you're part of a larger framework. And maybe you're not the top of the food chain, so to speak.
Oh, definitely not. We are not. And what you talk about is it's not a good idea to pigeonhole any of this, because when you pigeonhole it, you're missing some of the points that are most important.
Yeah, the impulse to categorize, they put the square things in the square boxes, the round things in round circles. Artists for millennia have understood that the function of art. You think of Picasso. Remember what he did with cubes and circles and squares? He changed the way people looked at themselves. I don't know about you. I don't go to art museums a lot these days, but I remember one of the first times I went to an art museum. I think it was in San Francisco when I lived near there. Went to the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art with a friend, and we walked from wing to wing. We walked out onto the street, and there was no longer a division between the museum. We saw Picasso-like figures on the street, by which I mean the sense of being exposed to great art had shaped, at least for a while, as we left the museum. It shaped how we saw. We didn't see ordinary reality in quite the same way. And a friend of mine who told me later, well, then you had a proper experience of art, because it's supposed to shake up your perspective. It's supposed to take you. The purpose of art is not to experience art only in artistic settings. It's to get you to change your life and the way you see all of life. So maybe this phenomenon and paranormal phenomena in general can be seen as an invitation to expand our perspective and to have a greater tolerance for the absurd, for example, rather than having to put everything in hard categories.
Yeah, and it's exciting to look at all these different aspects together. I mean, for the longest time, they were talking about the Tic Tac aerial footage and how fast they were going. And, it got so, to me, and to PK, I think you too, very boring. It's like, okay, we're talking about these lights in the sky, they go fast. Okay, big deal. Who's behind it? Can we communicate with them? That's more interesting to us. Because it's like, okay, let's see if we can reach out and touch these entities or whomever, consciousness, whatever level of consciousness, wherever they're from. That's of more interest than, okay, we got to catalog these lights in the sky, and now we got to try to militarize and demonize and make everybody scared that they have better technology than us.
Well, exactly. You may know that in the hierarchy of close encounters, the close encounters, the first kind, second kind, third kind, fourth kind. What that refers to, I won't go through the entire lineage, but the degree of closeness. So close encounters of the first kind is seeing an object, apparent object, at a great distance. Close encounters of the second kind, it makes contact maybe with trees or physicality. So the idea is that there became a language for close encounters of the fifth kind, CE5. And what that referred to was groups of people who decided, who were interested in the phenomena, who as groups would go out into nature and attempt to call, attempt to interact with the phenomena, invite them in. Now, there are varying degrees of success with that. And I don't know what exists in the way of hard proof. I know there are camera footage of what appear to be lights in the sky. But the point you're getting at is, when would we begin to look at the possibility that instead of just us being the recipient of their speed and velocity and their changes of angle and their sudden departures, and let's look at the radar video one more time and watch that little thing track across. At some point where there's a natural inclination, can we move closer to this? And do we want to move closer? Are we prepared for the implications of an interaction? It may be that it's challenging us, testing us, trying to prepare us for contact. It may also understand that when they see how we respond. I mean, can you imagine if this is a phenomenon that is taking the measure of us, taking the measure of it? They kind of go back and say, the humans are, as a group, a very tribal people still. This is a very tribal place. They go back and tell their overlords. The people are very nervous. Their response to us is extremely territorial, extremely defensive. I'm just being, imaginative here. But I would guess that they would understand. They see the kind of responses we have, including our religious leaders. There's a prevailing idea that there's a group in the Pentagon, and I want to be mindful of how I talk about this, but there's said to be a group in the Pentagon with people who are very highly decorated and officers who are also deeply committed religious conservatives, fundamental conservative religious people who are against making any effort to disclose and reveal the UFO phenomenon, because in their view, it is demonic. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that would be, again, it's not to say that every religious person has that kind of built-in dogma, but it appears to be a pretty solid case that is. So that's a remarkable thing, isn't it? That some of the very highest people in our government might be openly opposing the efforts toward disclosure or toward greater transparency because of that religious tribalism. If the phenomenon is able to track us tracking it, it says these people are considering us demons, and demons don't do very well in that worldview. So they're probably trying to decide to what degree contact with us is even appropriate. And they do seem to be preferential toward hanging out near our nuclear facilities and disabling nuclear weapons system. I can't give you a lot of specifics about that because I don't cover it fully in my book, but there is a good deal of evidence that our government isn't talking about. But there are whistleblowers who are coming forward, and they describe being on duty, active duty, and these objects come down, these lights, these full-blown UFOs, and they disable the nuclear launch system. So that's a big piece.
That's scary to think that transpires. In this day and age, if people are open to understanding what's being offered to us, because it really is a gift, don't you think? The information that you're coming through for us to pay attention to.
Oh, I think it is. I think it's, to me, when people talk, I've been asked, do you deal with disclosure? I'll say the whole book is about disclosure.
Yeah.
The whole phenomenon is a disclosure. Hello? I'm not the only one who sees that the events themselves are disclosing to us the inadequacy of our picture of the world. Mm-hmm. There's more to heaven and earth than is thought in your philosophy, Horatio. That's definitely a line from Shakespeare, that great line from Shakespeare. So, the disclosure is us. We're the disclosure. The events are the disclosure. But I know what people are talking about the claim that there are hangars, McDonnell Douglas and Lockheed Martin, the aerospace industries are now holding, it is said, they're in possession of captured saucers or retrieved aircraft. They've done back engineering efforts, and there are deceased aliens. I don't know, on formaldehyde or what form they're called biologics. Anyway, this isn't proved. This isn't proved yet, but there is a new round of evidence with names and dates and places that have been delivered to the Inspector General of the intelligence community. And apparently that Inspector General is investigating using whistleblower evidence. It's very, very high level. I don't know where we'll go. I mean, there's part of me that says, well, the expectation that there's imminent disclosure has been in place for 8 decades now, since Kenneth Arnold's 1947. Any day now, the lid on the government cover-up is going to blow sky high. Okay, so there's part of me that says, okay, this isn't my first UFO rodeo. At the same time, this new round of rumors that David Grush, the former Air Force intelligence agent, has come up with, he's appeared on some media, and it appears to be something, there's something new, something there. So I'm an empiricist. I say, bring it. If that field heats up, I might become a tracker of the hardcore physical stuff. But meanwhile, other researchers are covering that. I'm more interested in the realms that include the way normal reality interfaces with supernormal, paranormal. That's kind of my stock and trade at this point.
Keith, we have a question from one of our listeners. Chanel, thank you. It's from Bravo Johnny. He's saying, what is your opinion regarding cryptids and their relationship towards modern alien sightings?
Could we, well, I'm not an expert on cryptids, but it's definitely part of the whole picture. Okay, it's as simple as I don't, there's always boundaries you've got to draw in a book, but the cryptid world, the idea of, the widespread assumption is this is if the sightings cannot be explained in conventional terms as either hoax, hallucination, or misidentification, that must mean they're extraterrestrial. But that assumption needs to be questioned because we meet them here on Earth. They are often in the sky, in the air, but they have a preference for water. They're very often coming in and out of bodies of water. Three-quarters of this Earth is water. So it's very possible that this is a phenomenon that is closer to Earth, either parallel dimensions or in the world of cryptids of various kinds. So the answer is I don't go deeply into that, but it's a part of the phenomenon that's explored by other colleagues.
So just so you guys know, what happened was, all of a sudden, the lights started flashing in here. I am in a room in the basement. And the lights went out for a moment, came back on, went out, came back on. I called my husband, who's in another part of the house. I said, did we lose electricity? No. So I guess it was just particular to where I was sitting.
Well, I think that the most reasonable explanation is the three-way energy we're generating.
It's intense.
Yeah, it's knocking the fuses out. So we're going to have to tone down the vibe a little bit so that we don't lose the fuses completely.
Gosh, I was missing out. Thank goodness you guys were able to continue. I do have a question. I mentioned this off the air. Robert Bigelow has done a lot in terms of UFO research, as you and I discussed. He has spent a lot of money, big money, on trying to get to the bottom of a lot of things. We've all heard a lot of rumors about the kinds of technology he has that he has not shown to anybody else, at least not to us at Supernatural Girls. We don't know what it is, but we've heard about it. But you did a whole chapter of him on the book, which I thought was really nice that you did that, because it is a way to honor people like Mr. Bigelow, who are looking into this, who, like you and us, have a very open mind and looking for answers.
Yeah, I met, sort of full disclosure, I met Robert Bigelow once at a conference. We had a nice exchange back and forth. He's a very smart businessman, and he's very savvy on these fields of non-ordinary reality, larger realities. And he goes, his story, I decided to create a chapter about him because his whole life has been influenced by that. When he was traveling with his grandparents in a car. He wasn't with them, but he grew up hearing the story of his grandparents who were driving near Las Vegas back in the day, probably a Rambler or you can almost see it from some kind of black and white movie. And they were buzzed by a UFO that came down very close. It had all the trappings. It absolutely devastated. It left them bewildered, left them amazed. I don't know how close it came and what the other details were, but he grew up hearing about that story. It became part of the family mythology, and as often is the case, it's kind of a calling he got simply by being in the member of a family that had had one of these. It was part of his fabric of reality. And so he went on to become a very successful businessman in the short-term motel apartment business, and then moved into aerospace issues, but always with an interest in psychic phenomena, non-ordinary, supernormal phenomena, life after death, the Bigelow Institute of Consciousness studies. And he also played a very important role regarding this phenomenon called Skinwalker Ranch. You know, most of our viewers and listeners have at least heard about it, seen the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
I have never been there. I will tell you, when I was getting ready to do the book, I thought, well, okay, for my field work, maybe I'll try to wrangle an invitation to come to Skinwalker Ranch, because I read the 2 books about Hunt for the Skinwalker, and pretty remarkable claims. They are remarkable claims made by ordinary people. I know many of the firsthand witnesses, and the idea that these are all just tall tales doesn't hold up for me. The fact that the phenomenon is selective about how it displays itself is entirely plausible to me. I understand conventional thinking says, well, it wouldn't be selective. That would imply that it has some kind of intelligence that would make it. Well, why don't you pause right there? Why don't you pause? It is a kind of intelligence. Whatever's going on at Skinwalker Ranch is precisely some kind of intelligence.
Definitely. Yes.
So, of course, it might be selective about how it appears. It appears, for example, that those who approach Skinwalker Ranch with a highly regimented mentality, for example, the military and intelligence people who've been granted access to Skinwalker Ranch, they often have the most difficult and harrowing experiences. It might be, as I was suggesting before, the very boundaries that military people have, that they can put everything into a systematic framework.
Mm-hmm.
The intelligence Skinwalker Ranch might be, we'll show you about a framework. Pay attention. Look out there. And then you see 6-foot-tall werewolves. And so, on the other hand, people who go to Skinwalker Ranch with a sense of reverence, who understand that it does appear to be the site of an ancient Native American curse, that's a piece of data worth paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So, long story short, I asked Robert Bigelow at this conference. I had very little interaction with him, but I said, Bob, I'm thinking of trying to seek an invitation to Skinwalker Ranch. He'd already sold the property to the new owner, Brandon Fugel. Would you go based on what you're having been there? And he paused very calmly. He said, if you go, you should be willing to bring something home with you.
Yeah.
Now, do you know what he meant by that? Are you familiar with the hitchhiker? The hitchhiker phenomenon. That is where people confront the paranormal at Skinwalker Ranch. I've called it Hitchhiker Ranch.
Right.
Experience what's called the hitchhiker phenomenon that comes home with them.
Yeah.
I get so anyway, there's evidence that happens. It's not rock solid evidence. I understand the debunker. I always have a debunker in me that understands how this sounds, because I grew up in the Midwest. I never lose touch with that skeptical part, but I don't let it run my head, because I know that there's a lot of evidence for these things. In any case, Bob Bigelow said, you should be willing to have something come home with you. And I did enough research into the kind of stuff that people report. And these orbs of light or sometimes have health effects related to them. Mm-hmm. So I thought there's a pretty good likelihood if I go to Skinwalker Ranch, I might make contact with something for the purposes of writing about it in my book, but I might not reach the level of evidentiary proof, that would make it a rock solid thing. But I might come away with an immune illness. Based on, because there are people who do make contact with these orbs, often get sick. They get lymphoma. So anyway, I wrote a couple letters to the current owner of Skinwalker Ranch while working on this book, and he never wrote back. And I think I was spared. I think I was saved me a problem that I didn't get to go to Skinwalker Ranch, so it's not part of my book. But in any case, Bigelow has invested a lot of his own funds and he used the Skinwalker Ranch phenomenon before selling the property to the new owner. He incorporated in the current government government research into UFOs, the paranormal dimension. That's what I wanted to acknowledge in my book. That is a program called OSAP, one of those big sets of initials that I can never remember. One of the problems with all these military acronyms.
Yes.
CIA is an easy one, but AAWSAP, I don't know. But in any case, he incorporated into that program's methodology the paranormal dimension. Then it got revealed. Then it got closed down because the government did not want to look like it was in the ghost hunting business. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he has a new contest out. We mentioned the first one that he had to prove life after death. And he did get some tremendous scholarly research that was published in these books. But then he started a second contest, and I participated in that with two friends, and we got past the first. We were accepted after the first round. We didn't make it past the second, but they changed the view on it, which I found interesting. They changed the whole purpose of it to instead determine what would it take for people to choose spirituality over technology. And that became the focus of the second contest.
Right.
And what we wrote about was, first of all, you have to start with the truth. Who are we?
Absolutely.
We haven't started there. We're told a whole bunch of lies about who we are and what we're capable of. So it's very difficult to build from a lie and then make a solid decision about spirituality versus technology. It gets very distorted. So anyway,
that's a good point. I'm not real familiar with that later round of research, but I decided to write a chapter near the end of the book called "Who Do We Think We Are?"
That's right.
And in that chapter, I said, who do we think we are? What is our sense of our boundaries? What is our sense of our own farther reaches? And my conclusion is twofold. One is we don't have a very big picture. Our religious mythologies don't give us a very big picture of who we are.
Right.
And our science doesn't ask us to extend that either, although ironically, sometimes it is through scientific enterprises that we get interesting glimpses. For example, I write in my book about UFOs about the importance of the placebo effect. What? That seems like a stretch. Well, here's what I'm talking about. We've all read the articles, we've seen them on TV and radio about an effect to test a new drug, let's say for pain relief. And there's an experimental group and a control group. And they're both told that some of you are going to get the real medication and some of you are going to get no medication, but you won't know which ones are which. So for all you all getting dummy medication, you don't know who's going to get the real medication, who's going to get the dummy pill. So with that in mind, they consistently discover that significant percentages of those who do not get the real medicine achieve the same benefits that are as those who got the real medicine. More than that, and by the way, this is double blind. Nobody knows who got what, including the researchers. They don't know who got what because they don't want to give any clues accidentally. Right. So the second element of this is the people who don't get the medicine also get the same side effects of the medication as if they got it. So let's say the side effects are kidney problems or lower back problems. You get the benefits of the medicine and you get lower back problems that you didn't get any medicine for. So the point is, what I found remarkable in this, and I wrote about, is that in these studies on placebo, when they make it into the news media, there's usually a doctor quoted at the end of the story. What does the medical community view of this remarkable finding? And there's usually a doctor who said, we call that the placebo effect. Just the placebo effect. It's just an artifact. No. You can't just say just the placebo effect.
Right.
Merely, what are you saying? We have evidence that people who believe, the power of belief that they've got medication and allows them to go through a healing effect. Well, is there any way we can game this so we can learn how to do the placebo effect? Maybe we could dispense with the medicine if from the time we were children, this could be a screenplay. I'm sure it's been done. We need more movies that show children who are not told that they're not amazing. If we just could raise children without the idea that you're not amazing, but in fact, if you are amazing, what if we would do that, and that you have capacities? It could get pretty crazy, but it would be worth the. In other words, if we understood we have inherent self-healing capacities, that's what the placebo. So what's the point about that? The placebo effect says that the boundary between mind and matter, body and mind, is not what we think it is. It's not absolute. Well, the UFO phenomenon, that's the analogy, is a phenomenon that cuts across, appears as material and also appears as psychic.
It does. It's again, that's what you brought up, such important points tonight. And again, it's just one thing that's going on here. It's the fabric of our universe. And who gets to own it? It's us. I mean, it's the people. This doesn't belong to the military or the government or whatever. This is who we are. We're capable of opening those doorways you mentioned and going from one to another and exploring the whole universe. One of our guests, Lon Milo Duquette, who we adore, used to say, it's all in your head. You just don't know how big your head really is.
Right.
Beautiful.
It's true.
Yeah, I'm just thinking something I wanted to say, and I've kind of lost it. So
sorry.
Maybe it'll come back. But yeah, we're on the same wavelength. I know exactly what I wanted to say. For a while, I was emphasizing the fact that ordinary people have these experiences of UFOs, of paranormal phenomena, precognition, and when they share it with someone, the typical, no, that didn't happen. It was just a coincidence. Don't mind any of that. I have actually kind of come to shift my views on what's going on in that dialectic, that dialogue between this is what happened to me, no, it didn't dynamic. And it's something like this. There's something democratic about the fact, a small d democratic, that is something, there's a democracy part of the fact that the phenomenon interacts with individual people, even though the official agents of culture, no, it didn't.
I'm so sorry, Keith. We're going to be cut off because we've exceeded our time. So
okay, thank you.
So great, we loved it. Wonderful.
I'll come back.
All right.
Please do.
Next week with another great show.
Thanks.